Hey guys, what's going on? David Avalon here with Robert Drysdale for another edition of the Breaking the Guard podcast. We're actually on number 25.
Oh wow, it's going quick, man.
Yeah. We missed last week. Robert was actually in the Europeans, where now he's actually has two of the top competitors of the world. Fellipe Pena is the number one.
Fellipe Andrew.
Oh, I'm sorry, Fellipe Pena. Again, maybe mixed up people. They're both really good though.
They're fighting each other actually.
Oh, are they?
I just got him a super fight in the UK with Pantheon in May.
Nice.
They're actually going against each other. Yeah, Fellipe Pena beat him the first time. So it's a rematch.
Fellipe Andrew, I'm sorry. And he actually had a really nice win, triangle armbar, I think it was,
yes,
right?
Triangle
Over Keenan Cornelius. And then you had Luciana, I don't know.
Mota,
who's the number one female at Purple Belt.
Purple Belt division, yeah.
So, congratulations, man. As a coach,
Thank you.
That's a pretty awesome accomplishment.
You know, the funny thing is, like, we always want to give ourselves credit, but then there's, like, the asshole part of me that's the total asshole to myself. I can't even be happy for myself. It's like, I didn't do that. You know, and in the case of Luciana, a little bit more because she's been with us for quite some time. And, but like her husband is her teacher, Diego. Yep. I help a lot, you know, but he's her real coach. And then with Fellipe, that's all Vacha. I really make sure to give Vacha credit, which is quite impressive if you think about it, because the number one in the ranking now, in IBJJF ranking, is Fellipe, right? And number two is Vacha. They're both Vacha students.
Oh.
That's never been done before. That's never been done before. Number 1 and 2 in the world have the same coach.
Yeah.
You know, so he may not, Vacha doesn't always get the recognition as a good coach, but he really is an outstanding coach.
It's not a coincidence, right? When you have the top two guys in the world,
Maybe.
that to me, that means he has a good formula, right?
Yes.
He's got a good system, and he's able to crank out top athletes.
You know what? It's funny, like, we talked about this a million times, but like, it's the formula to be a good coach. And there's so many different ingredients. I think you have to have an eye for it, because he found Fellipe as a blue belt. He found Vacha as a white belt. You know, like and I think I have an eye for it, but like, it's very difficult to bring him up through the ranks. I actually think that the technical side is easier, even though everyone think that's all the work. The technical side, to my opinion, is a lot easier. It's the social side. It's putting up with people's shit that I don't have the patience for. Like Vacha does it really well, and it's not, he knows when to put the hammer down. Like, that's what a good coach does. You're not supposed to put up with it. You know when to put the hammer down with people, and that's a skill. And that's what makes it work. Like, the coach is supposed to be the boss, and like, this is what you're going to do today, and this is how it's going to work. Because at the end of the day, your athlete has to trust you. If he doesn't trust you, you lost him. Yeah. And it's actually detrimental to that the whole relationship stops working.
For sure. You know, that's one of those things, like, when the athlete trusts you, they don't necessarily question every judgment you make, and or the instruction that you teach, or the strategy you give. I know we've both seen it where you have a very promising guy, he rises up really fast, ego grows faster than the humility, and then suddenly he starts questioning, like, oh, I don't think I should do that. I should do this instead. Yeah. I need an extra coach. I need this or that. And then at that point, it's like, well, I can't coach you anymore because you don't trust me. You don't trust me.
And that's what I tell my guys. Like, if you don't trust my instruction or the instruction of your coach, you got to find a new coach.
Yeah.
Because it's over. Like, and the funny thing is, the better fighters get, the more it's to their own detriment, because the more they feel like they know better, and all of a sudden they're questioning everything. And then the more they do that, the more it's detrimental to their career, because they were better off when the coach was giving them. If you find a good coach, he gives you the good guidelines. Like, that's a winning recipe, man. You don't change that.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's that's such an underrated aspect of the coaching game. Like, people don't realize that. But I mean, going back to Vacha, he does that really well. He's got a lot of good guys. A lot of good guys came out of his camp. Like, if you look, like, a lot of big names. What else? Yeah, Europeans was fantastic, man. It was a great event.
There was a good amount of buzz about that show.
Yeah.
I know
Mike Musumeci and the big guy Saif.
Oh, yeah.
That was huge.
They couldn't pick. Man, I feel for Mikey, because, man, like, I know whenever I done absolutes, they always threw me the heavyweight. But at least I'm, you know, we were talking about this before.
You're a big guy. You're not a small guy.
200 pounds, more or less. So, like, I can I scale up pretty well.
Yeah.
But when you're like Mikey's size, like, he's like, what, 130 or something like that?
Not even, man.
Yeah. And they put him, not like just a heavyweight, an enormous heavyweight, you know? Like,
but here's the thing, though. The bracket, like, people give IBJJF shit, but it really is a computer. It's a software. Yeah. It used to be handpicked, and this is what used to happen. Like, so, I don't know if you know this, Rob, but like, the day before the Open, the head coaches would get together, the main teams, right? The ones, every coach could participate, But if you didn't have a guy who had a shot, you normally didn't show up, right? There's normally people that had one or two competitors that had a good shot. And there was like a yelling contest, and whoever could yell the loudest would get like this top seed, basically. But it was loosely based off accomplishments. And Fabio Gurgel always won because he had the deepest voice. That's my theory. Like shit counts, believe it or not. And then, you know, he would always win these arguments, so his guys always had the best seeds, and like Andre would leave the room pissed off. I'll be like, okay, you know, it is what it is, and yeah, half the other guys would be pissed off too, and no one was perfectly happy. So IBJJF finally developed a system that you get points per tournament that you win, right? And every year that goes by, the year's previous tournament they're worth less and less, right? So you have like an internal ranking, and then the software like spits out the bracket, so there's no more argument.
Yeah, well, now that there's they're always pushing, at least to see Flow Grappling always putting the rankings up on social media. So now you can make seedings easy because they're already there.
Yeah.
I mean, you already know, okay, 1-9 or whatnot. So,
but everyone would think that Mikey and the big guy was like done on purpose, because he was the lightest guy in the open, and he went against the heaviest in the first fight. You know, but it really was a coincidence.
But it definitely made for an entertaining match. And then him and Ali went at it, which was another
great, man.
Great match. And then Saif ended up beating Ali later on in the heavyweight division.
I didn't see that, but that sounds right. I know Keenan beat Ali. He had this weird grip. He had Ali's foot wrapped in the lapel for the entire match. Like, I'm still trying to understand. You can see that he was stopping Ali from doing what he wanted to do, but it was this weird thing where he used his own lapel to control Ali's leg, and he was just like manipulating Ali around with the lapel. It was the weirdest thing, man. But he had a really good match with Ali. And I'm forgetting who else. Gaudio lost to Fellipe in the open, and then it was Cornelius and Fellipe in the final.
Well, it's a good showing also for Keenan. I don't think he's competed in one of these for a while, if I'm not mistaken.
I think the last time he competed at IBJJF would have been, I can't keep up. Yeah, you're right. He's been absent from.
I know he's got a lot of stuff going on, and you know he's got his school and all that, and still able to show up with the top dogs.
100%. I think he's an outstanding, and he's such a gentleman too. Like, I really like him because, you know, he has proven that you don't have to be trash talking, insulting your opponents, and diminishing people's work to be successful, financially successful. He does really well with his online sales. He does really well. I mean, his academy's probably is doing well by now. You know, I'm assuming. He's a very smart guy, very business oriented, but he's also a really nice guy.
Yeah.
You know, it's totally possible, people. You don't have to be an asshole to make money, you know. And I admire that because, you know, win or lose, he does have a very good attitude about it, you know. I don't see a bad bone in his body. He's just like a very shrewd businessman. I think he rubs people the wrong way a lot of times because he can, like the AJJ thing was a little polemical, you know.
Well, who was it? I think Draculino just posted a thing.
I saw that.
Which I guess was tagging him and also I guess 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
I mean, people want to. I mean, we talked about before. I thought it was just funny, you know, because if you're growing up learning Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and then you're going to label as American Jiu-Jitsu, I mean, I guess everybody can make a label.
Yeah.
But then you have the 10th Planet guys, which, again, they do, to their credit, have a system.
Yeah.
And they're very coordinated with, okay, they have everything systematized even to the warm-ups and all that they teach. So I get it, you know, they want to label their own thing, and it's a no-gi art, and they have a particular way of playing, which is kind of different than what most people do. All right, you call it 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu.
But the thing is, I think that, you know, everyone want to build their own brand. That's what we're talking about ultimately. And Keenan comes across as the guy who represents American Jiu-Jitsu if he portrays himself that way. I think that you can focus on the differences. We practice, you know, we've competed against each other, we've competed in the same rule sets, but we're different.
Yeah. Can
we call it David Jiu-Jitsu and Robert Jiu-Jitsu? I mean, I suppose we could. Yeah. But there are too many similarities to warrant. To me, there are way too many similarities. People focus on the differences. Xande Ribeiro did it best. He had one that was called JJJ, January Jiu-Jitsu. All the fighters that were born in January, which I thought was pretty funny. Because like, you might as well, you know, why American, why Brazilian, why not January? It's a perfectly valid question, you know, because you know, what determines your game plan, your style, has nothing to do with what country you were born into. You know, like the country does not play a role. How good you are at jiu-jitsu doesn't, you know, believe it or not, lo and behold, has nothing to do with where you were born. It has to do with how much you train.
Yeah,
you know?
I don't think having the labels necessarily like creates rifts unless For example, because I don't think if you went to the 10th Planet guys and go, do you guys practice jiu-jitsu? And they go, no, we do 10th Planet jiu-jitsu. I'm like, it's like a, you know, I think they'll say, yeah, we do jiu-jitsu, you know, but our brand, or maybe you could say it's like styles within the jiu-jitsu class. And I think that's probably a better description. Like, because you have jiu-jitsu, and then if you have guys who do 10th Planet, there's a particular way that they play. Yeah. And I've rolled with a bunch of the 10th Planet guys, and they all have a
style. Yeah,
they have their unique style. And then versus if you go with guys who are like more like submission wrestler based, all the boogie, also they have a different style. And then you go, people who come up from the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu school. That's a different look too, you know. So, but they're all jiu-jitsu. So I do agree with Jacolino, and that's they're all jiu-jitsu, you know. But I don't think you can't label it, because I understand the value. Like, obviously, by branding as 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, they've become very successful that way. At least Eddie Bravo has. Yeah. You know, if he would have just flown a BJJ banner or followed that, he probably wouldn't have as much success. Especially since his school has like a familiar following, almost like cult-like, if you would say, but not in a negative way. But they identify like that. You know what I mean? So it gives them a little uniqueness, which makes it easier. Yeah,
it's something that appeals to like a niche audience, because like, oh, we're doing something different. We're really not doing jiu-jitsu. We're doing, you know, this kind of jiu-jitsu, whatever. And to me, once again, we're focusing on the differences, and there are some differences. But what about all the similarities? That's like 99.9% of the similarities that go fly under the radar because we just take them for granted. But they're similarities. Yeah. You know, no one likes to be inside a triangle. That's a similarity. Right, we don't talk about the similarities. We always talk about, there's millions of little things that we do that are identical. Things, places we want to be, places we don't want to be, but those we just take them for granted. So we're focused on, but we do more of this or more of that, and that's always been the case though. That's not new. You can go back to jiu-jitsu in the 1980s, and every school had their own like little. These guys are really good at footlocks. These guys are really good at closed guard. These guys are really good at stand-up, and that's true for every school on the planet. So if we are going to put things in the categories, then every school should have their own name to jiu-jitsu. In fact, every practitioner at that, because even though we practice the same art, like I said, we compete at the same tournaments, our games are different. So like, again, we're going to call it David Jiu-Jitsu and Robert Jiu-Jitsu. And once we start doing that, it's like, where are we getting with this? I'm of the opinion that once you change the rules and you practice a different rule set, right, long enough so you can't even compete with each other anymore, then you have a different martial art, right? Judo, jiu-jitsu. The judokas didn't want to compete too long on the ground. The jiu-jitsu guys didn't want to stand up with the judokas. Okay, we agree to call judo, judo, and jiu-jitsu, jiu-jitsu. There's a split. I don't see that yet. I kind of see that a little bit with submission only, but as long as they call it jiu-jitsu, I don't think it's ever going to be far enough to warrant anything that is just like a variant of jiu-jitsu. It's not. It's just slightly different.
Yeah, I think one of probably the bigger reasons that people want to brand styles is the same way how you call your school your own name, right? Because you want to show, like, everybody's doing jiu-jitsu, but I have my flair in it, and I think my formula is the best formula, right? Because at some point, if you produce a world champion and then you just say, oh, where did he come from? He comes from jiu-jitsu. Then the ego part was like, well, I didn't get credit for, you know, creating the student and the particular style that we have. That's the reason why he was successful, because everybody's doing jiu-jitsu, but we have a particular twist on it that made it a little bit more effective. He's got better stamina, he's got better techniques that we focused on. That's why, you know, we kind of brand it in that sense, you know, because you have like Zen Jiu-Jitsu, and there's, you know, Checkmat, and there's all these other ones. And we were just talking about Vacha and how he's produced these two guys, but if his name isn't attached to it, we don't know why they were successful. Like, we watch them, but like, if we know, oh, Vacha is the guy who made Buchecha and Fellipe Andrew. Okay, what's Vacha doing? Yeah. Oh, he has his particular thing that he focuses on. Okay, so now we can benefit, you know. So I feel like there is benefit to having the different style names, but ultimately we all, well, at least in the jiu-jitsu world, we're all doing jiu-jitsu one way or another. But we just use labels to distinguish between.
You know, the more I think about this conversation, I think people get lost, and I think we just do the same thing. We're like in these little, tiny little things. It's like, I think I don't know. To me, they're not really. They're not huge different. There's just so. Anyone who doesn't do jiu-jitsu and is listening to us right now, they think we're fucking crazy. That's pretty much what they're thinking. Like, you have to be a jiu-jitsu nerd to kind of get where we're going with this. I think that what may happen is I think that the people just might drop the B in BJJ, or I don't think the AJJ is going to last. I think there's this thing Keenan does, and I think some school might follow suit. But like at the end of the day, they're competing in the same tournaments. It's the same shit. Like, oh, he come up with some stuff. Yeah, everyone comes up with stuff. That's the other thing. Everyone thinks that they created something that is unique and revolutionary. Like, yeah, but everyone does that. Everyone's doing that all the time. Like, you got details of the Kimura no one ever taught you. True or false?
Yeah.
That you learned, right? How did you learn them?
Yeah,
practice, failure. Like, I do the same. Like, I got little guillotine stuff that I do that no one ever taught me. And I feel that's true for everyone, And then, of course, people like Keenan, they're no exception to that. People like, what's his name? Eddie Cummings, like the guy with the leg lock system. Like, I'm assuming that no one ever taught him. You have to learn the hard way. And he does things that are very particular to his own style. But I think I'm more of the opinion we should celebrate the similarities and not focus on the differences. That's how people are with everything. You ever notice that? It's like everything, religion, politics, anything that's contentious. People have this like laser light focus on the differences. And the similarities, sometimes identical, they're completely overlooked. To me, I think that's interesting.
It is. And, we continue on with competitions. We still have another tournament we haven't talked about, which is Kasai.
Kasai was, when was it? This weekend, Saturday?
Yes, it was this past Saturday.
Yeah.
So, big winner is Cyborg, which was, he's
pretty impressive.
Iron Man of Jiu-Jitsu, because I think he's
getting better, it seems like.
Yeah, I think he's 30. He's my age, I think.
Yeah, 38, maybe 39 now. And he's getting better as he gets older, because I remember Cyborg when because we're the same age, we're the same generation, we competed the same tournaments. He was always good, but I think he's getting better as he gets older. It's like this weird thing where he's more dominant now than he was 10 years ago. Because 10 years ago he was good, but I think he's won like every major no-gi competition he's been in, other than the ADCC, the last ADCC. But everything else he's won.
And I wonder how that would translate. What other weight class have done do that? Cobrinha was very successful even.
But Cobrinha's always good. Like, I think Cobrinha was consistent with his success. Like, Cyborg, I actually think he's getting better. Like, he's won more in the last 3 years than he did in the previous, maybe not. They had some big titles too. But it's very unusual, man. It's very hard to do. For this
sure.
As well as I do, man. It's brutal.
The hurt in the body, and he's a heavyweight too, so there's a lot of... I was just trying to think, maybe because he's a heavyweight, he's able to last longer. Because, they say strength is the last thing that goes as you get older. If anything, you could argue you're getting stronger. But your speed definitely goes, but as a heavyweight, speed maybe not as important. But I don't know, if you see him scramble, he moves pretty damn good.
He moves well, and then, the injury factor and, like, staying healthy. So, certainly impressive. He won, he beat it was a rematch with Nick Rodriguez. I didn't see it, but from my understanding, it was a decision.
Yeah, it was a decision. It was one of those...
close ones.
Another coin toss. So, I guess he got heads the first... tails this time,
It means it's close. It's a close matchup. Who else? That kid Kyle Bone. He tapped Joan Gabriel, which surprised me. I thought Joan was going to beat him, so that was a big win. Yeah. Joan was complaining about something. I saw the highlight. I'm not sure what he was complaining.
No, that was a clean leg
lock. Did he think that leg lock, that heel hooks were illegal? Maybe.
No. What they were saying, because I saw the post. I'm like, man, this looks like a clean heel hook. There's nothing wrong there. He just half guard.
He was complaining about something. I don't know what.
I guess someone else was saying that Joao's foot got stuck in his shorts at one point. Okay. But it was 10 seconds ago. And then he started complaining about it after he got heel hook. It's a weird timing.
No, yeah. I mean, I don't know the details, but it doesn't seem like it looked like legit. Yeah. Who else?
We talked about him before, but he's been doing a lot better now, Kyle.
He's very good. I saw him first time at that quintet he fought Fellipe actually, and then they went back and forth with footlocks. But it was a no point system. Yeah. So there's no victor. They were both.
Yeah, they both get wiped out.
Yeah. But he's definitely gone up a lot. Who else? Hulk was in there. Hulk is always in there. He has some wars. I think he had a war with Cyborg.
Yeah, Cyborg got a good suplex on him.
Yes, another wrestling match. Yeah. Reinforces what we always talk about: the importance of wrestling in jiu-jitsu. Who else? I mean, that looks like a stack. Ludo, he got heel hooked by
Nick, I believe.
Was it Nick?
I think
it was Nick. That's right. I saw that. All right. I didn't watch the show. I just I follow stuff on Instagram, and that's how you can. There's too many shows, man. It's hard to keep up.
But that's a good thing, right?
100%.
I remember like back in the 2000s, there was no like professional venues really. Like you had like super fights that were paying like 60-man absolute, $500, you know?
Yeah.
You get to fly across the country, get a hotel, but you're breaking even, you know, to compete.
Oh, so. And you know, I mean, MMA, it's still like that a lot of times. By the time you're done paying everything, you're in the hole a couple $1,000s.
Yeah.
You know, you're paying to fight. But it's getting better, man. Like, look at the prizes. Like, this is something that is really, I feel that, you know, I think a lot of competitors take it for granted. Like, they don't realize how lucky they are in the terms of, even though the sport, a lot more people in the sport, you can actually make a decent living just fighting.
Yeah, right now you can.
Nah,
you know?
I mean, you have to be like a top tier guy. Like, you can't just be an average Joe. But that, even if you were the best in the world, there was no such thing as making a living from just fighting, because ADCC was every 2 years.
Yeah.
Even if you won, it still didn't mean a lot.
Yeah, as a pure grappler, you would really have to be hustling too.
No, you were teaching seminars and running
seminars, and then you know selling merch and doing a lot of stuff, and then usually you have a school and you're teaching private lessons on the side. A lot of things now, like you're saying, this is a competitor, and you're doing sponsorships and you know seminars and stuff like that. You can make a pretty good living, you know, just especially as somebody who doesn't have a formal education or whatnot. You just a pure athlete, and you know. As some of the top guys, apparently they're making silly money. You know? Yeah,
but here's the thing though, like they fall into that trap too that every professional athlete falls into, because I won't say it's easy money, because fighting is not easy, but it's not the kind of hard that a businessman learns, you know, or a kind of like a business kind of hard, because you fight, which is fun, you go to jiu-jitsu, you win, you get a big check, right? And it's like a basketball player, a football player, same thing. And then they retire, and then what happens? You know the statistics, right? It's something like 80% bankrupt right after retirement.
Like a lotto.
Same thing, because you never learn how to make money. You never learn how to manage the money. You never learn how to invest the money. So that artificial injection into your account one day is going to go away. And just because you saved up a few million doesn't mean you're going to be able to hold on to it. Because if you have a few million in your account, chances are you don't live in an apartment.
Yeah.
Chances are you don't drive like, you know, a 94 Honda Civic. You know, chances are, you know, you're living above your means and you don't have a source of income other than your savings, and that's not going to last.
Yeah.
You know, so it's the same. It's the problem that every professional athlete bumps into sooner or later in their career. Like, can you turn that corner once you retire? You know, so in a way, for even though like we missed that, we never got a big paycheck. The ADCC was the only thing paying back in the day, right?
Yeah.
It was every 2 years. But at the same time, because you ran a school, I run a school, like it teaches you something.
Yeah.
Like you learn skills along the way at least.
So
I feel like if I never made a dime from, you know, competition, it's fine, because I can still make a living running a business, because I have like a basic understanding of how this works. Whereas a lot of these guys will not have that when they retire. They're going to be white belts at life by the time those checks stop coming in.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lesson to anybody really. Like, I mean, this phenomenon, they have it with lottery winners also. And actually, with lottery winners, they end up worse than when they won. And it's the analog that was given to me was financial thermostat, right? Like everybody essentially, depending on your background, has a number in your head or like a status of living that you're comfortable with, right? So for some people, maybe that's 40K, 60K, 100K, whatever it is.
Infinite.
Yeah, right? But whatever that is, that's where you feel comfortable being at.
Yeah.
So when you get, like you said, an artificial injection, like a lotto, and then from having like $10,000 in the bank, now you have like 500 million. It's like you have more money than you're comfortable having or just used to having. So what do? You start spending money like crazy. You give money to family, you give it to friends, you make silly business decisions or investments. And because you start burning through that money fast to get you back to where you were when you started. And then sometimes you end up getting lower than you started.
Because then you have debt.
You have debt, yep. Yeah. And then now you have a huge mess, and you've probably made enemies everywhere and burned people down.
You know the problem?
And I've had this in my brother's wife. Her family had won a lotto and made a lot of money off it, and they ended up sharing money with the family, and then a lot of broken bridges, from my own understanding, happened, and now everybody's worse off for winning this big jackpot. It's just because people don't have, like you said, they don't prepare because having that much money is a responsibility, you know, and you have to learn how to handle it. But like they don't teach you that in school, you know. So if you don't come from money and you be giving a lot of money, it's a problem. You know,
actually, it is. Yeah. You're right, because they don't know. Like we were talking, they don't know how to manage it. No. You know, so they think, oh, I got millions of dollars, so like I'm good. I'm going to invest this and that. But like, even if you do make investments, doesn't mean they're going to be good investments.
Right.
And then you have all the taxes you got to pay on that investment. But now your standard of living goes up significantly, right? Especially if you're not surrounded by the right people. If you have to be surrounded by a bunch of morons and a family sometimes they're trying to be really, really dumb people. Yeah. And they just want a piece of the pie because they think they deserve it. Because like, hey, I helped you pay your mortgage that one time. Give me $1 million, you know? Yeah. So I imagine, man, it would be very disruptive to a family. I think that, you know, there's like that classic story of the old grandpa that's dying and everyone's fighting over his money and it turns every son against everyone. There's a movie out about this. Knives Out. Have you seen it?
Oh, no.
Oh, it's great, man. It's exactly what we're talking about, right? Knives Out. It might be in the theater still. And it's a classic story, but it really is, you know, I think what a way to destroy a family, too, I imagine.
Yeah.
You know, I've never had that problem. Don't get me wrong, if someone in my family won the lottery, I'd probably ask them for money too. I'd probably do the exact same thing. But, you know, but I think it would destroy the family a lot of times. You know, if you don't have like a very like tightly knit group of people and everyone's reasonable and it's hard to find, like everyone in the family is reasonable. That never happens, right? No. So there'd be a lot of conflict. That would probably distance, you know, you would become very isolated, I think, as a result.
I always say that money is just the physical manifestation of power, right? And, you know, power corrupts and it also attracts things, right? Yeah. So like you have that much power, you know what to do with it. There's going to be people that are going to be attracted to it, and then they're not always going to be good people. And take advantage of you, you know, make bad deals and all sorts of stuff. So you got to really be careful. That's why it's smart. Like when people go out and I see people, they come like in masks, so when they're going to announce the winners or whatnot, and they make sure they don't reveal their identity because, man, that could. A lot of people just don't understand it. You know, like family members are like, oh, why did you give me all this money? Like, you know, at the end of the day, it's not going to solve the problems that you have. You know,
no.
Like if you have problems in your life, having artificial money is not going to fix it, right? It's you might have a temporary relief, but then you're going to burn through that money. Again, same thing, the financial thermostat, you know, you're going to regulate eventually. And it works the other way too, whereas if you have a catastrophe or something bad happens and you go below where you're comfortable at, what happens? You take a second job, you know, your third job, whatever, and you build yourself back up and you level out, right? So like the trick for people who make those status jumps is they have to be able to move that thermostat up, right? And how you do that, that's a whole other question. But it's similar to like competing as well. Like
skill.
When you're like a blue belt or something like that, you might have this mental image that you are a blue belt, right? So that you can't beat people above you, or you can't beat particular people because you have this limitation in your head.
Mm-hmm.
I know when I first joined the wrestling team, I came from being like computer playing nerd type. Overweight. I was like ninth grade, 200 pounds, really out of shape. And I guess I had this mental image I couldn't run well at all because every practice we would have to start off with a 3-mile Indian run. And I couldn't run 3 miles continuously, let alone 1 mile continuously. Like I would end up doing like the first half mile and then fall off and then have to walk and then run and walk and run. And I remember like 2 months in, I was still struggling, even though I could do the wrestling practice fine. Yeah. But the run, I was getting like smashed. And finally, but I would get better every time. I'd get a little further before I had to stop. And then finally, one day, I completed the 3 miles without stopping. And then never again did I ever have to walk. And I could be like Rob, I could be so out of shape, and I've done it, like completely out of shape, and I could run 10 miles without stopping.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like suddenly I achieved, like a video game, unlocked maximum endurance.
Yeah.
It's just a mental thing, right? You have a barrier, you know? So if I would have never broken through that barrier the hard way, you know, I would have never been a good athlete, let alone be able to run. But it's like one of those things that you have to constantly push against it, you know? So I think the harder you have to work to earn something or to develop that skill, the more likely you're going to break a threshold, you know, that you can always surpass. I think when you talk about business, like what would be the better path? Like, I have to work my way through to make my first million, or I have a rich uncle that just drops $1 million on my lap. You know?
Exactly.
I'd rather be the guy that grinds through it because I know how to do it.
Everyone thinks I'm crazy when I say that, man.
Yeah.
I have this conversation with people, like, I'm really happy I wasn't born rich. And it was like, oh, no. I was like, no, man, like, I want to pay the iron price because I actually appreciate the lessons that come with it. If you got the rich uncle, man, you're like, what exactly are you learning? You get the connections. Like, don't get me wrong, I like the connections. To me, that would be the valuable part of having a rich uncle.
Yeah.
I would like to know the people that he knows, right? Like, there's a saying in Brazil, maybe it exists here too, like, if you want to learn how to fly, you don't hang out with turtles.
Yeah.
You gotta hang out with eagles, right? Like, and I always looked at jiu-jitsu that way, and like, who are the best people? I gotta hang out with those people if I want to be like them, right? And in business, it's the same. But like, if you get handed everything, like, not only do you not learn anything, you're the one that ends up like the guy who wins the lottery, ends up broke at the end because you don't know how to manage the money.
Yeah, if you're born into money or born into power, I think it's definitely more tricky to get those motivations right. You know, obviously it's possible, and there's many successful people that have even more successful children. Yeah. But it's a different parental challenge, right? Because you have to be able to create challenges where there might not necessarily be, right? Yeah. Like, you might not need the kid to do the lawn because you have gardeners, right? But you might make them do it anyways, just to give them a sense of duty and like chores 100%. And whatnot, right?
That's called good parenting, in my opinion.
But you have to be a good parent, right? Yeah. And all because you're very successful in business doesn't mean that you're a good parent either, right? It might mean that you're just really good at business, and then you had a family with kids, but you're focused on your business, and then the kids go wayside, you know? So
it's like if you're being a coach, it's kind of like being a parent in some ways, but I actually strongly believe that tough love is real love. If you want someone to truly learn something, you want to make them grind for it. You know, you don't want to give them the easy route. Yeah. You know, same thing with your kids. Like, my kids, I'm no perfect parent, but like, I make them earn stuff. Like, I don't like buying them stuff just because like they feel they deserve it. Like, they know that they have their chores and they help, and like, even like little stuff, like, I don't carry their bags for them. They're like, oh, bro, like, some people might even think that I'm kind of mean sometimes, and it's not that. It's just like, I want them to learn to take care of themselves. Like, if they spill something, I don't clean it for them. I'll make them do their best, and like, now they're old enough they could actually clean up after themselves. But when they were little, I make them clean it, and it was a horrible job. But it wasn't so much about keeping it clean; it was more about them understanding that was their problem. Yeah, they have to have the responsibility. Like, I remember, like, they would make a mess in the car. Like, they'd spill chips in the car, and they're like 2-3 years old. I make them clean it. Like, they didn't do a good job, but it's a lesson. That's what you're after, right? And I think that's what, you know, a lot of people miss out, is that they make it so easy on their students, so easy on their kids, and they think they're helping. It's just, that's like the worst thing you can do for someone, is just like, you know, give them the short route. Yeah. Mm. I think ultimately, the goal of a leader is to breed tough people around them. Like, either your children or your students or your employees, you want to make them tough. You got to make them earn it. And I think at the end of the day, people appreciate that. They may hate you at the time for making them do the extra work, but I think in the long run, they'll appreciate it. I'll give you an example. My mother, you may or may not know this, she owned a language school in Brazil, right? Oh. So they taught English, Spanish, Italian, German, and French. Oh. I grew up inside that school. I was there every day. I ended up learning Spanish just because it was, it was very similar, it was easy. But I did some German, but I didn't really learn it. But till this day, I'm kind of upset at my mom for not making me study. Like, Mom, why didn't you force me? Like, I was there every day. Oh, you just wanted to play. I'm like, no, you should have set me down and like made me study German for an hour a day every day. I wish she had done that. I think at the end, when you're harder on people, maybe not at the moment, but later in life, they'll appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, if I look back at my first training sessions in wrestling, I hated everything that we were doing. I hated to do those runs. They were miserable. Having to do pull-ups was embarrassing because it was supposed to be 3 sets of 15. I couldn't get like 3, Yeah. So it's awful. And then I remember there was one point, I'll never forget this. We got in because we would do our Indian runs, sprints, pull-ups, and then we'd get inside the mats and then start the wrestling practice. Yeah. And my legs were just burning, And I go, Coach, can I get a break, please? Like, my legs are really hurting. And then he just stepped down, looked at me, and goes, you know why your legs are hurting, David? Because you never done a hard day's work in your life. Right? And he just went on a tire and he goes, but go ahead, sit out for a little bit until your legs feel better, buddy. And then I was like,
feel like crap. But you probably hated him at the time, but now you're like,
oh, it's hilarious now when I look back at it. But it's like, it's what I needed to hear. You know, like a good coach knows like when to, I guess, use negative reinforcement in the way, because that was like a negative, like a sarcastic kind of coaching, but it worked because it got my ego. I'm like, I'm not a little bitch. I'm like, okay. I'll get up and do this thing, you know?
But the thing is, like, not everyone can take it. Like, I feel like I can take it like a champ. Like, if someone says something that I don't like to hear, but it's true, it's a bitter pill to swallow, but, like, I'll get over it. Like, I'm like, you know what, at the end, it doesn't take me that long, I'll go, you know what, that's a good friend right there. Yeah. He's telling me what I need to hear, right? But, like, I've been that with some people. Man, they get butthurt, and they can't deal with it. They just can't stand criticism. You know, and it's hard to coach. So, like, as a business owner, you balance these things because you want to make them hardcore. Yeah. You want to get the best out of them, right? The very best version of your student. And that's what they want in theory, but in practice, the execution is not always easy because they're very soft. Yeah. And if you push them too hard, you'll lose a student. Now, you got to pay rent. So balancing these things out is very difficult. But, you know, it's doable. Like, I think that ultimately a good coach is a good psychologist. Yeah. And the better you get at it, the more you're able to identify your students and what's his profile, like what's his background, like who is this person, and you know how to get the best out of them without pushing them away.
Yeah, you have to be careful of what you're calling as breaking somebody, right? Like, we don't necessarily want to break somebody. We want to get them really close.
Yeah.
You know, but I feel like if you broke somebody, now they're gone. They don't come back. You know, you want to get them like where they're about to break, and then you can snap it back.
That's a skill, man.
It is a skill, because the closer you get them to breaking, that means you're also breaking through a lot of garbage in their head and limitations that they have. And if they're able to snap back, now they've gained a valuable life
lesson.
And
now you know what those limits are too. Like, you're able to gauge like how far you can push them. I'll give an example. We have a comp class at the gym now, and it's you know, I wanted to run like a wrestling practice originally, right? Hard 2 hours, like hard, like live drilling rounds. You know, high roll, like maybe aim for like 7-10 minute rounds, you know, after drilling. And I'm noticing that, you know, by the end, people, oh, my knee hurts, my shoulder hurts. And it's difficult balance to find, because you never know, like, why is your shoulder hurts at the end of practice? A, because it's been aggravated from all the rolling, could be. Yeah. Or B, because you're just being lazy, right? And it's difficult because you have to find that balance between keeping your athletes healthy, but also pushing them, you know? And some people are like, they'll push through the injury. And those you almost have to tell them to slow down, because they'll keep going. Others, like, every single time they get tired, that old injury all of a sudden starts bothering them. And like, are you full of it? You know, and you know, it's a very difficult balance to find, but a lot of it has to do with, like, exactly that, just people skills, like social skills, being able to identify someone when they're full of it, and knowing how hard to push someone without pushing that threshold. Like with Fellipe, there were days, you know, preparing for the Europeans where he was asking me to stop, and it's the first time I've trained Fellipe. I've never trained him before, so it's like, I don't know where that. I'm discovering that as we go.
Yeah, where that boundary is.
Where that boundary is. Like, I should call Vacha a few times. Like, Vacha, where is it? And then Vacha gave me, like, this is how he is, right? Yeah. And, okay, so that's how he is. But even so, now, even if you know your students individually very well, that creates another problem. You're coaching a group. Are you going to have a class for every single individual? Because that's a private.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm training a group of 20 people. Like, it's a lot to juggle, man.
Yeah, you know, when my brother and I first started off, we came from like a fight club mentality, because the first school that we trained of, we went from wrestling to a very intense program, and then we joined a guy who was doing essentially fighting, right? And he didn't cater to anybody. He's like, this is the program. Either you're tough enough or you're not. So when we started our school, it was the same way. And my brother the first thing someone would do when they go to a gym was spar, full contact. It's crazy. Yeah. No headgear or anything like that. It was nuts, right? But sure, people who survive that are tough. But you're, like we said, we're breaking a lot of people before they can even develop. And, you know, and those people, and you might think, some people like, oh, you know, if they couldn't survive that beginning part, they weren't worth training later. It's like, no, that's not true. You know, there's a lot of diamonds in the rough that if you row them right, they'll be better than everybody else.
Yeah.
But because of whatever their background, you need to raise them properly. So I think the first step in not running private lessons for everybody is making those groups. Like, one of the best things we did was when we opened up our introductory program. So we have our advanced program and the intermediate. because now like, okay, we can group them, and the group is going to be a lot closer together. You know, like we have people, you know, our beginning program is not even ranked. You're not even a white belt. You're just like first, you know, 6 months of training.
Yeah.
And then you graduate into white belt, and then you move up the ladder that way. But like making those separations make it easier because, okay, people with less than 6 months of experience, chances are can't, you know, do stand-up fighting or anything like that. And we limit them so that we, one, protect them and grow them at a pace where they're able to adapt, you know? And I think it's important. It is the balance. I know for myself, I would always train past my limits and I would get hurt more often than not. Because I always had that voice in the back of my head. It's like, oh, you're being a pussy.
I know. I know.
I'm like, oh, I'm no bitch. I'm gonna keep going. You know? I'm like, oh, crap.
So here's the $1 million question: is Dan Gable right? Because I've heard it. Dan Gable today backtracks and he goes, no, overtraining is not a myth. But at the same time, he is an Olympic gold medalist.
Yeah.
So, and because I've had this conversation with students of mine where I tell them to rest and I tell them not to overtrain and I tell them like, you know. And then they go like, "There's Robbie, did you do that?" I'm like, "Oh hell no! Like I was overtrained every day of my life." I'm like, "Well, you won, didn't you?" I'm like, "I don't know. Like, am I right?" I actually don't have a good answer to that question because it's a very difficult balance to strike.
I think that it depends on your age, right?
Yeah.
And I guess the progression of your skill set. I think if you're young and early in, you really want to push that throttle. It's hard to overtrain when you're young. Right. I mean, I look back at the type of injuries I was training through when I was in wrestling, and it's ridiculous. Like, I would be sidelined for a year, like if I had half the injuries I had back then. So I think you can push through it, and it's important that you do when you're younger because that's going to create that mental toughness. But at a certain point, you don't need to prove you're tough anymore, right? And once you've achieved a certain, it's like if I climbed Mount Everest, do I need to climb it every year to prove I can still climb it?
Yeah.
No, I've done it once. I know I can do it, right? So like I don't need to prove that to anybody anymore, right? You know, so it's kind of like, have you ever done an absolute before? You know, yeah, I've done like 30 of them. I don't need to prove I can fight the big guys and keep doing it. You know, so I think it's that kind of thing. Like once you've gone through a certain amount of trials, we don't need to go overdrive all the time.
You know, it's funny because it's exactly how I feel. Like I feel like I don't have to climb Mount Everest every day. Like I've done that. And sometimes I don't feel like doing it, right? Sometimes I'll go to war with, like Fellipe said, I want to train with, oh shit, here we go. You think it's fun going to war with him? Yeah. It's not, man. He's faster than me. He's younger. He's stronger. His grips don't break. Mine do. You know, like everything is against me. But, and then I'll tell myself, did I get soft? Did I lose my toughness? Or do I have absolutely nothing to prove? And I know that. And I know that my happiness depends only, how I feel about myself depends only on me and not how other people may look at me. Does that make sense?
Yep, 100%.
And I'm completely content with what I've done. I have no regrets. I have no, like, I don't have any, you know, there's no anger inside me because I would have won more. Everyone wished they would have won more. That's normal. Michael Phelps, ask him. Yeah, I wish I had won more tournaments. Yeah. Of course. But, you know, I'm completely content with the fact that I can't beat Fellipe in practice. You know, I might give him a good roll, but like he's better than me, and I have to accept that. But like there's a part of me that tells me there's that little voice, right? You're being soft. You know, you lost your toughness. You know, like you should never be quitting now. And I don't think the word is quitting, but every now and then, like you accept things, whereas before I would have never accepted them. You know what I'm saying? Like I get caught or if someone passes my guard, I'm like, okay, I accept it. But I used to not accept those things. So, but I think there really are phases, man. You just have to, it is what it is. You can't, there's no way you're going to be competitive your whole life. And it's just going to get worse as you get, there's nothing you can do about it. But ultimately, I think the trick is, like I discussed, we were just talking, is being happy with yourself. If you're content, what does it matter what other people think?
Yeah. And it's a exercise of ego as well, right? I know, like, I've been doing a lot more lifting now, and I don't go to, I do go to failure in pretty much everything I do, but it's controlled, right? Like, with squats is probably the one thing I'm not going to do the failure because you're not coming back up.
By the way, that's really good advice. Squats and deadlifts, I think PRs are useless if you're a fighter. They're just dangerous for the benefits you're going to get. Like stay away, squats and deadlifts, stay away from PRs. That's my advice.
Yeah. I mean, I've done them, but like very controlled. Like I go under what I know I could do.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to fail on the squat. I mean, because I just had knee surgery. I don't need to blow out my knees or anything, you know? But like, you have to weigh the risk versus benefit, you know, for every situation. So like, can you fail on the bicep curl? Yeah. What's going to happen? Okay. Yeah. No big deal. Right?
Pull up.
Yeah.
You let go.
You let go, right? But yeah, if you're failing, like when you see the gym fails and people squatting and the it's like, Jesus Christ, like I can't have one of those things happen. You know, it's like it's the same thing when you're rolling. You know, get caught on an armbar, like are you gonna eat that? What's gonna happen? You're gonna pop your elbow, you might tear your shoulder, you're gonna have a lot of time off. Not worth it.
Not worth it.
You see, for me, chokes, I always ate them. What happens if I wake up? I'm good.
Yeah.
But it's also dangerous. It's not smart. I've had one of my guys who got choked so bad because he was getting head scissored, and the guy couldn't see him, and he was passed out for probably longer than 10 seconds, and he had like a little mini stroke. Lip froze up.
Really?
Like that for a week. And he had like a Joker smile. I was like this.
But they went back. Okay.
They went back eventually.
Okay. So I have a student of mine, like I'm not going to mention his name, but he's not training with me anymore. But like I think he liked being put to sleep, not because he got like I know people get turned on by that. That's like a thing, like the fetish. I'm serious. Like there's a whole underground of people like get off on getting choked out. But like with him, it was the attention because every time he woke up, everyone would be on him. He was like a very attention needy person. Yeah. And, he would just get put to sleep, and everyone's so worried about him all of a sudden because he's asleep. So he'd get put to sleep almost every week. And I'm like, this kid's doing it on purpose. There's no way it's a coincidence that he keeps getting put to sleep. And then he actually put together, I kid you not, this is real. It's on YouTube. If you look hard enough, you'll probably find it. He put a highlight reel of himself getting put to sleep at tournaments.
Wow.
He had a highlight reel he created of himself. And he's not doing it as a joke. It was just like, this is how hardcore I am. I get put to sleep kind of thing,
I've unfortunately in training, I've been put to sleep a few times, but not because I'm like, let me see how far I can go with it. It's that I was fighting so hard that I didn't have, like tapping out wasn't an option in my head.
Yeah.
Like, I gotta escape. The one time I got put to sleep in competition was with Tarsus Humphreys at 2007, and it was double overtime. And he hadn't scored points yet, and he had a rear naked choke from the back mount. And what was going through my head was how I'm going to win this match. It wasn't like I need a tap. And then I remember I woke up, I'm like, oh, crap.
Yeah, it takes 10 seconds to realize.
I was looking at the lights and like, that's not good. I remember there was one other time I got mad at myself because I think it was the second time I ever tapped. It was against Salo Ribeiro. I fought in the Arnold Classic, I think it was like in 2003. And I was losing I think it was 5-0. And I was just going desperate, trying to get a takedown. Shot a sloppy double, and he got me in a rear naked choke. So also the only submission I've been caught in competition. Was
rear naked choke?
4 times. And so that's a clue.
How to defeat Dave.
So
instructional, how to defeat Dave at Avalon.com.
So he got me in the rear naked, and I remember I was fighting, and I tapped. And afterwards, I was mad. I'm like, I should have went to sleep. I should have kept fighting, I gave up on myself.
No.
And then I got sobered up by a match later on. 2 of the women were grappling, and one of them was in the guard and got caught in a guillotine. And I was holding it. I looked away, looked back, and suddenly there was a giant puddle underneath him. I was like, what the hell is that? Like someone threw a water bottle? And the girl in the bottom starts freaking out and pushing the girl out. She choked the girl unconscious, and then she pissed herself. So I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
Tapping's a lot better than pissing yourself.
I know a guy, I'm not going to mention his name. He's not known in the U.S., but he's known in Brazil. He shat himself on national television.
Oof, yeah, that's tough.
They had like one of the few events in Brazil that was actually on TV. And he shat himself, and you couldn't, in his defense, you couldn't tell on TV. It didn't get brown or anything, but the smell. Like people that were near him were like, oh shit, man.
Yeah.
So that's it could be, tap. It could get really embarrassing. That's a highlight reel you don't want on your track record.
Sure.
I got put to sleep once. It was silly. I was a blue belt, maybe a white belt. Like the guy did that choke. In Portuguese, they call it a maçapão. I don't know what you call it in English, but he holds the collar and he pushes with one collar with one hand and he grabs the other collar with the other one and he pushes his knuckles into your throat.
Okay.
Right? And I was in side control and he was doing that. And I'm like, there's no way I'm tapping. It wasn't that I was trying to be tough or anything or being stubborn. It's just like, it's dumb.
It wasn't going to work, yeah.
And the next thing you know, same thing. I wake up and there's like 8, 9 people, like, you know, a bunch of heads floating around me. It took me like 10, 15 seconds to get a clue of what had actually happened. That was a weird thing. Like it doesn't register right away. I'm like, well, okay, oh yeah. I was caught in a choke. Oh shit, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely not healthy.
So I think that's a good way to end it. Public service announcement.
Just tap.
Don't piss yourself. Don't shat yourself. It's
Fucking
not worth
man.
it.
Not
Trust
worth
me,
it.
it's definitely not worth it.
Guys, it's a pleasure. Hope you guys enjoyed. We were a little off track for the holidays, and then you were traveling. Where were you again?
I was in Tahiti.
How was it?
That was pretty nice. You got to swim with wild dolphins. That's a
really
bucket list item off. It's pretty amazing.
Like as in like touching them and everything.
Yeah. We were like 60 feet deep, just in the blue, and it's like 2 dolphins came in, and there was a big group of divers, and they would go in between the divers and just you would scratch their belly or the back.
That's awesome.
And they would do it a few times because they would come up for air, come back, and then eventually get tired and swim off.
Living the life.
Yeah, it was pretty badass. So
all right,
last item.
Awesome. Well, good for you. And we'll hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you guys again next week.
Okay.